Typical behavioral question topics include working with teams, communicating with clients, adapting to changing circumstances, handling time constraints, and making decisions that demonstrate your values. This slide presents an example of how one story can potentially answer different behavioral questions. It also demonstrates how concise an answer can be and still be impactful. The 4 questions presented on this slide are: give me an example of facing a conflict while working on a team, and how did you handle that? How have you handled difficult coworkers? Tell me about a time you were under a lot of pressure. What would you do if you were given a deadline and it became apparent that there was not enough time to complete the project on time? Be ready for interviews with 6 to 8 example stories that can be adapted to many behavioral questions. Prepare these stories using the SAR method, or SAR. S being the situation, A being the action, and R being the results. In our example on this slide, the first part, the situation, was on my first job. I was given responsibility to complete an inventory by the end of the week. I was doubtful I would be able to complete it on time. One of the workers, who had not been very friendly, was nevertheless obviously very good with Excel. Then the action that you took. In our example here, I complimented her ability with Excel and asked for her expertise. And then finally, you want to give or describe the result. In our example, I was able to complete the inventory on time. I learned a lot more about Excel in the process and found that we actually worked very well together. Use every interview as practice. Soon after you complete an interview, write down every question you can remember and consider how you could have answered better. You'll be more ready the second time. Ask others who have interviewed what questions they remember. Many internet sites contain lists of interview questions with advice for answering. Change their answer enough to make it yours before you use it. Typical standard interview questions. You can find a lot of advice online for typical interview questions. The first one mentioned here, tell me about yourself, is often the first question of the interview. It doesn't sound like a question, but you should perceive it as meaning, would you summarize how your interests, education, skills, and work experience make you a good candidate for this job? Not how many kids do you have or where did you get that amazing dress. Keep it concise, 1 to 2 minutes. You're going to expand on these points later in the interview. For the question, tell me about your strengths, you want to explain your past successes with concise examples. If you were a welder, you could mention, I'm a naturally good welder. I've welded pipe, structural steel, aluminum, just about every material and process you can think of. For a customer service person, you might talk about your customer service skills. I'm a people person. I've always been able to work with angry and belligerent people to find solutions that leave them much happier than when they came in. For the weakness question, what is your greatest weakness? Answer with a work struggle that you have improved on already. You've found solutions for it or you've overcome it in some way, and then explain it. An example might be, I'm not a natural multitasker, but I've learned how to prioritize work, to complete the most important tasks done first, and that makes it easier to handle distractions later. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Here's an example. In 5 years, I will still be learning and growing within this occupation because I really am interested and passionate about this type of work. But experience has shown me that one can't stand still because very few occupations stay the same. I know how to adapt to change. Why do you want to work for us? I want to work for you because it gives me the opportunity to do the type of work I enjoy and at the same time work for an employer with a good reputation for excellence and treating customers and employees well. But only mention an employer's reputation if their reputation is actually excellent. How do you handle stress? Give examples again. Explain how you handle stress by giving an example of how you succeeded on a past job even though the stress level was really high. Why did you leave your last job? This can be difficult if you left the job under poor circumstances. If so, use non-damaging terminology. I was let go because. Be concise with whatever your explanation is. But also then go to something positive. Explain what you learned while working there and how it has prepared you to do better in the future. If they ask if you have any questions, you should always have some questions ready during an interview. You can ask questions early in the interview that are about what you can do for them, such as, can you tell me what skills are required for this job? Or what do you want me to focus on first? You can also ask what a typical day on the job would be like. Wait until the end of the interview to ask questions about what they can do for you. The rate of pay, benefits. Hopefully they're going to bring those kinds of questions up themselves. For typical interview questions, the principles then are to give examples from past jobs or projects. Give answers that are relevant to the desired job, and use their terminology. When they ask you negative questions, briefly describe the difficulty, then explain what you have learned and practiced to overcome the difficulty. Explain how you turned the negative situation into a positive. Become familiar with illegal interview questions and how to respond to them. Employers should ask questions relevant to your ability to do the job, not about race, age, disability, family status, sex, birthplace, and so on. The strategy for these kinds of questions is to ask how the question is relevant to the position and provide an answer that focuses on your ability to perform the duties of the position.